Hi, this is Dr. Raju Khubchandani, Senior Consultant in Pediatrics and Sectional Head of the Department of Pediatric Rheumatology at the SRCC Children's Hospital, which is managed by Narayana Health in Mumbai. Today, we shall be taking questions on musculoskeletal disorders in children. The first part I would like to state here is that parents lead by example. Parents who are lazy and non-ambulatory invariably would tend to have children who shirk away from games and activity. There is nothing like overstressing or overstretching. Children would usually like to set their own limits. Additionally, trying to sort of encourage games and activity should be done more for the fun and joy of it. The competition and the health aspects of it should be told to children as byproducts. Fourthly, we should remember that all children are different. So comparing them with your neighbor or your nephew is never a great idea. And last but not the least, if you want your child to be active on the games or sports field right from the beginning, ensure that you minimize his or her screen time. The first important fact for all of us to realize is that bones and teeth have 99% of the calcium of our body. The remaining 1% lies in the blood, where it plays a very vital role in coagulation or clotting of blood or in muscle contractions, including heart or skeletal muscle. One very crucial feature that we should know is that bone is not a dead tissue. Bone is a living tissue which is constantly getting replenished and absorbed. Now let's look at it this way, that the calcium which gets converted to certain salts is the scaffolding of the bone. The vitamin D is the transport and deposition mechanism. So, realistically, vitamin D is a hormone. It's helping to absorb calcium from our intestines and deposit it onto bone. Uniquely, 60% of our calcium and vitamin D, or rather our bone makeup, is genetic. The remaining 40% comes from the diet we eat, from the environment that we live in, but also the medicines we take. And the steroids that might be prescribed could really play trouble with our bone health. And of course, physical inactivity can be rather troublesome to bone health. Very uniquely, diet is a negligible source of vitamin D. The main source of vitamin D is our skin. There are certain precursors of cholesterol which get acted upon by the ultraviolet B type of rays from the skin, and these get broken down to the vitamin D, which is called cholecalcifera. The vitamin D absorbed from the gut is ergocalcifera. Now, the issue here is that with modern lifestyles, where all of us spend time indoors and in air conditioned rooms, or where sunlight comes through glass, which absorbs ultraviolet B light, there is not enough falling on our skin. Ideally, you require at least half an hour of direct sunlight between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Peculiarly, there was a study done in Delhi in children which showed that children, because of the heavy smog conditions in Delhi or in places where there is a significant ozone layer, the UVB cannot penetrate this, and many children there turned out to have vitamin D deficiency. Also, the pigment in your skin, the melanin, the more melanin you have, the greater the amount of time you require to spend in the sun to get your vitamin D supply. Now, still people may ask why or which are the foods rich in vitamin D. Okay, so animal meats, dairy, and as far as vegetarians are concerned, tofu. For those who are vegetarians, they could consume eggs, orange juice, almonds. These are rich in vitamin D, but not yet adequate enough to meet recommended daily requirements. Nothing like sunlight. If you can't still do that, then supplementation with the uh, oral vitamin D is your best way to go. Late walking, crawling, sitting, or standing come under the area which we refer to as gross motor milestones. This is in contrast to what we in medical parlance refer to as cognitive or mental milestones like smile, tracking, recognizing parents, getting stranger fear, etc. So, by and large, when you are approaching a child with a developmental delay, if there is a global developmental delay, which means delay in mental and motor milestones, this is more likely to fall under the purview of a neurologist. But if it is merely motor delay, this could happen because of problems in bones, joints, muscles, or even peripheral nerves. A very careful history and a physical examination would usually be able to tease the problem. And when I'm talking about delay, I'm not only referring to a delay right from the beginning, but it could be that the child has achieved some milestones and then is not progressing beyond those. We have to be very mindful that many of the milestones have a range which is within normal. So it's not absolutely necessary to panic if your first child walked at 10 months and your second child is not walking till 12 or 30. Get your child checked. Bone doctors or pediatric orthopedic surgeons are involved in dealing with trauma, injuries, infections, acquired or congenital deformities in children. In sharp contrast, there is another super subspecialty which so far has flown below the radar, and that is pediatric rheumatology. Look at pediatric rheumatologists or us as a very small tribe who look after the medical aspects of bones, joints, or muscle diseases. So the children who we'll end up seeing are children with arthritis, children with prolonged fevers, fevers with rashes and various skin conditions, and several rare disorders. Of course, children do get arthritis, and the arthritis in children has a host of reasons behind them, starting from conditions like reactive fever or rheumatic fevers. They can get various infections in their joints. They can get something called idiopathic arthritis, which means the cause is not known, various genetic causes of arthritis. And last but not the least, several causes due to what are called autoimmune conditions like lupus, dermatomyositis, or even inflammation of the blood vessels of the joints, an entity called vasculitis. But very fortunately for us today, the diagnostic methods available to us in India are just as good as in the West, and there are several treatments where these children can live a very, very fruitful, healthy quality of life. Growing pains, a term from rheumatology textbooks, has actually been imported into English literature to signify the pains or the troubles which any incubators or startups feel till they get properly established. Sure enough, in children, it's a problem of which the cause is not completely known, but it's typically a 4 to 8 year old child who complains of calf or thigh pains, which are not really properly localized, especially in the evenings or nights. Once he falls asleep, usually he sleeps through, gets up absolutely happy in the mornings. Parents would often report that the child gets relief by massage, and these pains are invariably in both the lower legs. Multiple visits to multiple doctors invariably are normal on physical examination. The child may have had x-rays or blood reports, all of which are normal. Actually, the parents just need to be reassured that as the child grows, he will grow out of this. It's only important to make sure that mimics of growing pains do not exist, because there the treatment may entirely differ.